Welcome to episode 3 of the Behind the Lens podcast. I'm Madison Sharp, current multimedia editor at The Slate, and is very passionate about visual storytelling and learning from the personal stories of others. Behind the Lens aims to highlight multimedia creators in photography, videography, and everything in between. Today we're going behind the lens with Mr. David Oliver, videographer and producer in the Office of Communications and Marketing at Shippensburg University. Thank you for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to be here.
So if you want to start with just introducing yourself.
Yes, I work in the communications and marketing department for the university, so we shoot a multitude of things. My background is in news, of course. I've been shooting either photo or video for over 20 years. So I started out freelancing for the Slate, and then I came back to Ship 2010 to get my undergrad to finish it, and I started doing stuff for the. Did I say Slate? I'm sorry. I meant the Sentinel.
The Slate. I was about to ask you about that.
I freelanced for the Sentinel in Carlisle.
That's cool.
So, and then I came back and I started shooting video as a student here for SUTV, and I just absolutely loved it. And then I got my job at CBS 21 right after I graduated, and I worked there for almost 10 years.
That's very cool. Did you try out any other kind of student media while you were here, or was kind of video like your thing?
Video. Yeah, that was my thing. Yeah, I would just go and try and find whatever was interesting. I think my first package was that I really, you would just kind of like, it was like go along and see what was your best story that you could do, and then you really liked it, but then you found another story, and it was even better. And so I would just kind of find as many stories as I could, because there's always a story to be told.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
And so I really enjoyed the video medium over shooting stills. Mm-hmm. I don't even really shoot stills anymore.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
That's interesting, yeah, because I mainly do like still photography. I haven't really played around with video too much. I feel like they're different beasts. Definitely.
Totally.
I definitely have a lot more respect for videographers since starting this podcast, because I've learned about all the little things that can go wrong in post and all that stuff. So yeah, shout out to you guys for real, because I'm still learning every day, but I think that's the beauty about what we do. Is that there's always, that's my thing, like people need pictures, people need videos, people want these things no matter like what it is. And so there's so many opportunities to learn and get involved.
I would say shooting stills was harder though.
Really?
Yeah, because I felt like if you got sent to an event or a news or whatever, you had to get the one image to speak to everything, and I just felt like it was really hard, because you had to get one image to communicate what was going on, and I just felt like that was really challenging. And there was times where you get assigned something, local newspaper. Sometimes it's not the most visual thing, and you had to make it work. It was I just remember being very stressful, because I really wanted it to come out good.
I get that. I think also in photography, it's like a lot of the events that you're photographing, there's maybe 10 other photographers with you, and they're all getting the same shot, and you're all taking the same shot, and it's just about kind of diversifying what you're doing and looking for different things that other people might miss.
Right.
So I think that might be a little bit of a difference as well, because I mean, like I said, everyone's going to get that one shot that everyone's looking at, but it's, being able to, sure, I'll get that shot, but then I'll run around and do something different so I can diversify myself from other people.
Right.
I feel like video, I guess there is a bit more that you can play with, I guess, in the moment, like of what you're doing and all that kind of stuff. I mean,
I think you can do more. I mean, they both have their own merits, obviously, but I just felt like you could go in a different direction if you wanted to, more so than a single image. Yeah. But I guess everybody's got their own. It works. Whoever, whatever you like.
It's up to preference. Yeah, definitely. So, I guess just to start this off, I always ask people this to start things off, but where did your kind of passion for multimedia storytelling start?
I think it was just National Geographic when I was a kid. I think that just seeing all the images, just the way they told a story, I just loved it. It was my favorite magazine as a kid. And then I also remember I didn't really care for radio, but I remember I used to listen to NPR when I was a kid, like a teenager. And I just loved the way that they would tell the stories of, they would take you to all these places. And I just felt like they were storytelling in a unique way. But I had no interest in, doing radio or anything like that. But National Geographic I just thought was so amazing.
That's cool.
So, that was where I really got an interest.
Was it like what they were photographing specifically that interested you? Like, are you like big wildlife person?
No, I mean, they would go to all these different, places. This is before really the internet. I mean, I grew up in the 80s,
Yeah.
in the 90s. Obviously, the internet was around in the 90s. But, I mean, you didn't really have access to the world the way you do today. And so, something like, just a very media-rich magazine like National Geographic just kind of took you all over the world. And the stories were really well put together. And the images were just really... they were better than the article. You could argue which one's better, but I felt like the images were just really strong and powerful and really well thought out. So
that's cool. Yeah, I love that. Is there one thing, or I guess one subject or something that's like your favorite thing to record?
I'm very ADD. I like everything. I'll get really hyper focused into some subject, but then once I learn as much as I can about it, I go to something else.
Yeah, that's
I'm just
cool.
a very curious person.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think this is the perfect field to be curious. You have to be curious in order to do this kind of stuff.
Yeah, and it was somebody who struggled in school. I felt like when I started news, it just clicked, and it was like it just worked for me. I really enjoyed it. There was never a plan. Every day was different, and I think anybody who has ADD or whatever, I just think it's really you have to find what works for your personality and who you are, and not try to be something different. And I feel like that's really where, when I worked in news, I just loved it, and all of multimedia, because it's different every day.
Yeah, I completely relate to that. I love the fast-paced environment. I love the running around. Oh, can you go grab photos of this? Yeah, sure, I'm there, and I just run over there and do it. We were talking before we started recording about the farm show, because I just interned there in January, and you were there capturing some content for the university. And just that kind of environment, I mean, I'd never been there before, but just launching myself into something I had no experience in and living there for 10 days and doing all the stuff, you wouldn't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did, but I really did, and it was so cool. And I think that's such a special thing about our kind of field.
That's the best way to learn too, because you can't plan out. I mean, you can plan and storyboard something, but when you're gathering content as opposed to creating it, in a sense, if you're not in control of it, you can't have it. You can anticipate only so much. Yes. So it's really important to know. Yeah, have a plan of what you're going to shoot, but the situation that is in your head is going to be different than what you're going to shoot. Yes. And that's what I think, if you are somebody who's very curious and can hyper focus on stuff, I think that's where you shine. It's because you can just roll with it, and it changes, and you're comfortable with change. And I think that's really where this field, whether it's in news or if it's just general multimedia production, all of it is just very comfortable.
That's so true. You have to be able to adapt on the fly, because things will happen that you don't expect, and you have to be able to make the best of it. Definitely. So I guess you've been into this kind of field, like video, for a while, but when did it kind of start to click in your head that you wanted to pursue it for a career versus just something you were interested in?
This was years and years ago. I was freelancing as a still photographer, and this was in Michigan. There was a hate rally. This was way before protests were really common, and I was asked to go and shoot that up in Michigan. So I went up to Michigan, and it was just it was a protest, and it was really there was just a lot of adrenaline pumping, and it totally got me hooked. Just to see people's passion, people standing up against just a very a hateful situation, and this was probably in 2005. It was a while ago, and I just feel like that just made it click, because I just felt like I could handle the situation. I got really good shots that I was that I thought that came out really well. Of course, when you're early in your career, you look at stuff that you think's great, and then 10 years later, you're like, oh, or even a year later, if you're growing, you're kind of like, oh, that didn't come out as good as I could do now, or whatever, but. Just the energy, the fast-pacedness of it, just being able, the stress and the pressure of it, it just worked out. And then when I was an undergrad here, I think one of the stories I put together, because that was when I was shooting stills, one of my first stories was that there was a professor here, and he used to take the oil from the cafeteria from everywhere, and he used to make biodiesel out of it. And it was just kind of a quirky, fun, like human interest package, and for me that was just like it was so much fun to put together because I did like a ride along with him. I just got him collecting oil, and he had like this home lab where he was putting it all together, and he was like distilling it, and it was just like he's just this kind of eccentric person who's got he has an old diesel car. That's what he was a professor. I forget his name. But he would do this, and I just thought, oh, what a great story. And I remember getting all the natural sound and all the interviews, and that was actually what got me a job at 21 because the chief photographer was like, I love that story. And I was like, oh, okay. So, sometimes you just never know when you're working on something if that'll be an opportunity. But that story was just fun to put together. I just remember editing it and getting really excited about it because it was a positive story as opposed to something that's negative, and it was like, oh, the human interest story is probably my favorite genre.
Yeah, of course. That's the best feeling when you leave a shoot and you're just so excited to look at what you captured. It's the best feeling. And also I think this is one of the most fun jobs like ever, especially when it comes to, like I was saying before, people want pictures of everything. There's so many different things that you can photograph or like video or all that kind of stuff, and that's one of my favorite parts about working for the Slate as well. Like I've been introduced to so many clubs and organizations and people that I never would have met had I not been doing what I'm doing. And so I think, like you're saying, those human interest stories, you get to just learn about people, you get to do features about things you never would have even maybe thought about before, and I think it's really cool, like being able to tell those stories in a medium that you are passionate about.
Yes, I think that it is fun.
So you've had a lot of freelance experience throughout the years. How did you kind of begin searching for these kinds of opportunities?
To be honest, a lot of times it was just cold calls. I mean, you'd find what was a newsworthy event, what I wanted on my portfolio, and I would just go and do them. I mean, sometimes it would be for free. I mean, starting out, I did a lot of stuff for free. And then the newspaper they didn't pay a ton, but it paid enough for my equipment. And so I could, shoot stories. And one of my favorite things the Sentinel did was they would do for all the local theater. You would get like on the Sunday, I think you'd get like 5 or 6 images that would be on one page. And it was all, you'd get to go during dress rehearsal and get all the shots that, for like a local, like small theater, which I love. I love theater. And so it was just really cool to get those shots, like see 7 of your images. And it was obviously something easy to shoot. It was easy because it's theater, and it was just like really cool. But I love doing those. I forget the name of it. It's been so long. But I remember really loving those. And that's where I first started, getting paid. And I would do stuff for nonprofits and things like that. But I definitely think as an opportunity, if you want to get started, there are a ton of opportunities. Everybody needs content. And so if you're starting out, I would highly recommend, not just for resume building and skill building, but just getting comfortable with dealing with a variety of different things.
Yeah, 100%. I love theater photography as well. Yeah. That's probably my favorite thing to photograph. And I definitely agree with you on the cold call thing. Like I do some photography work for a community theater back where I live. And it kind of just started out like I knew one of the people, like I knew the daughter of the owner. I went to high school with her, and so I just reached out, just sent an email. And then I've been taking photos from him for a few years, and I started getting paid and all that stuff. And then I really found my passion for theater photography through that. So you never know what's going to happen if you just reach out.
Right.
And I think that can definitely be nerve-wracking for people sometimes. But, like I said, this is like the theme of the episode, but everybody needs pictures. And so if you just reach out to people, like most of the time, I feel like people would be, especially if you're doing it for free, like in the beginning, just to get experience. Like that's how you get started. You build a portfolio, and then you can start charging and all that stuff.
And I think people need to understand, like if you're starting out, don't be afraid to make mistakes and fail. That's just such a big, you're always going to have something happen. And the more times you can have something happen and land on your feet, you definitely, and if you want to start out just doing, pro bono free work, I think that is a good way of taking some of that pressure off. You wouldn't want to do a wedding and make a mistake, but, something that's, not a high-stress environment, just to get you comfortable with that, I think is really, really important. And it's really how a lot of people get started.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I did my first wedding over December.
How was that?
It's stressful. It
Yes.
definitely is stressful because that's like their day, and you
Yeah.
don't want to mess it up, and you don't want to be in the way, but you want to get the shot. And then there's like grandma in the middle of the aisle, like blocking your way, all that kind of stuff. Have you done like
I've done one wedding.
one
I will
wedding?
never do.
That's so funny you say that.
I just don't. I don't know why. I think
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I just don't do weddings. I think it's that. Not that I'm afraid of the pressure because I can handle a lot of it, but I just feel like, I just don't do weddings.
Yeah.
I can't explain why.
No,
I've done one and it was fine,
Yeah.
but I don't do wedding.
yeah, that happens to a lot of people. I feel like it's very, I don't know. It's for a particular kind of person who likes
Yes.
doing weddings. Like some people are all
Oh,
weddings
they love it.
and they love it. I don't know if that's me. I'd be interested in doing more, trying it out, but
Right.
it definitely is a different beast than
It's totally different.
yes.
For sure.
So I guess throughout all your years of experience, is there any like favorite memories you have of stuff that has happened? Anything like you can take it however you want, but when you think about the years, like does anything stand out to you?
I don't, I don't think anything really stands out because there's been so many funny it's a mix. Like this market in Harrisburg is a really good news market, and it's not really a starter market. It's actually very difficult because you have the capital and you have politics. You do have crime areas. You're covering like 6 or 7 counties. There's a whole host of things that you deal with, and I mean, there's anything from really, really sad stories because you're dealing with deaths and you're dealing with tragic stuff, but then you're also doing stories that like your producer would send you out that you might not think is newsworthy, but they love it, and so you had to balance all of those things. And so I've had a lot of great opportunities. I got to shoot. I don't want to say shoot because that always when the Pope visited Philly, I got to cover
wow.
that.
Yeah.
You don't want to say shoot the Pope because but
Yeah.
I covered the Pope in Philly, which was amazing. I got to go to Kuwait for a week to we did like a deployment story.
Wow.
I covered some of the Jerry Sandusky stuff just as a photographer, obviously. And a whole host of stories that I just thought it just made me happy with my career. So I was able to walk away when it was time.
That's
and
amazing.
So I was comfortable with. I was like, okay, well, I got to see a lot of stories. I felt like I got to really see the area. Doing news in Central PA, it's like you'd think it's kind of boring, but it's actually a pretty diverse area when you go and you start to go into all these different communities and you start to really understand people. And I really just loved that aspect of it. And it got to the point before I was ready to leave that we weren't really doing that as much. The industry kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was time for me. I mean, I don't want to speak ill of the industry, but it was time for me to go because I didn't feel like we were telling the stories that we should be. So
yeah, I can understand that. So you've covered some like pretty big events. How do you go about kind of handling maybe some just kind of tougher subjects or maybe people that just situations you're not very used to being in, and then you're there with your camera or something like that. How do you kind of handle that kind of pressure from, eyes on you and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of times you do have to really consider that you're a person first. And what I mean by that is a lot of times if you're covering a lot of tragedies, you do get desensitized to it. And, it's just another day for you. It's a homicide. And I would always call it my funeral face. Just put your funeral face on. And because sometimes you'll run into people that you're with a reporter that you really like to hang out with and talk, and you're at somebody else's worst day, and they want to be all chatty. And I would always try and just be very I never wanted to be seen like being jovial at one of these things. So I think you had to really be very sensitive about other people's feelings and what they're going through, because a lot of the stories would be things like that. And you have to de-escalate. I mean, I've had to de-escalate situations where somebody is extremely angry that you're there. In a particular story, it was really sad. There was a little boy. Their home was off of 83, and he was on a little dirt bike, and the property went right on a hill. He went over the hill and he got killed. And we were the first station there. And we were right there. You could see there was, the blanket was over him and his bike was there. And we had parked sort of like, there's like a middle median. It was a big grassy area, but we were close to where the family was. And there was, one of the cousins was there, and he was just staring at us. He was really angry. He wanted to, I could just tell he was upset. So I put my camera down and I walked over to him and I just said, I'm sorry for your loss. I was like, we don't want to be here. I know you don't want to be here. And he was really upset that we were there. And he just said, fine, you guys just stay over there and, leave us alone, which obviously they were afraid that we were going to try and get a soundbite, which once the other stations started coming in, that's what happens. They all want to get a soundbite from the family. And it's one of those things where you do have to form an ethical, you really have to form your ethical boundaries. And
Yes.
to me, it's like, we're not going to go and approach them because they're, first of all, once they've said they don't want to talk, obviously. And I remember calling my producer and just telling him the situation. He was like, oh, you talked to the cousin? Did you get a soundbite? And it was just, it just really upset me that they didn't understand the situation.
Yeah.
It was like, no, we're de-escalating the situation, and, you just care about the soundbite, which later on they actually respected that we didn't, do the typical news thing, which is like go up and try and get a soundbite, which is really awful if you think about it ethically. And they actually wanted to talk about whose responsibility it was to have a fence on their property. Did it belong to PennDOT or did it belong to them? And they actually did end up talking to us. So a lot of times you just have to have your principles, and you really do the ethical things that sometimes in news that producers or people or anybody will ask you to do. You really have to have a strong moral compass that you stick to.
Definitely. I think that's something a lot of people maybe don't think about before getting into the field, is you have to be very good at de-escalating things and just being a person first. I mean, I know today, the day we're recording this, today's CJM Day, and I remember last year at CJM Day, there was a speaker there, and one of the quotes that's just kind of always stuck with me that he said was, you have to be good with your camera, but you have to be even better with your heart. And I think that is so true.
That's very true.
Especially in this field, to stick by that.
I would say, too, don't ever be afraid. Don't take a job if you're afraid of losing it, because you won't be able to do it well. And, that was something that, I've probably came close several times in my career of saying the thing that people didn't want to hear, from to your news producer, and because it was ethical. And then there was also a lot of times where you just had to, I'm not going to say like, sometimes you couldn't tell them what was going on because they would ask you to do unethical things. Yeah. So you had to kind of I would always say what happens in the live truck stays in the live truck. Because there's times where they'd ask you to get, for example, get a sound. A lot of it was based on getting a sound bite or getting video of something that was, well, the other stations got it. How come you can't get, and it's like, well, because we don't know the method to which they got the sound bite. Yeah. Did they harass a person? Did they wait by their door? You may have a domestic abuse victim, and they literally would ask, the producer would want you to go and get a sound bite from that person. Now you're identifying them. And there's a couple times, you would drive to where they would want it, to their house. And I would just say, you'd stay in the truck and say, hey, they don't want to talk. You had to protect it somehow. Yeah. And, the things that, again, I don't want to bash the places that I've worked, but there was times where they would ask you to do things that I felt were very unethical. But, they're also learning, too. A lot of it was younger producers. So you do have to stand your ground. And a lot of times people will respect you once you do that. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah, I wish more people were kind of like that. Sounds very stressful to have to deal with. Yeah. So on a bit of a lighter note, we talked about kind of what you have done. What would be your dream thing? If you could cover one event or one kind of thing.
I don't know. I mean, I enjoy just the diversity that's on campus. So I do enjoy what I do here. But I mean, I have so many interests. I mean, I'm an outdoorsman. I just like so many things. I don't think there's really I don't really know if there's a thing that I would like above all. I mean, I definitely, I have to, I don't think I could work in a corporate environment or for a marketing firm that's marketing things that I don't like or believe in. You know, I have had a sales job, and I'm terrible at it because if I don't believe in the product, I can't.
Yeah.
You know, like going through college, you know, when I was working through college, I was a bad salesman. I'm not good at and I've applied that. Like I believe in SHIP because I'm a alum and I really like it here. So I can obviously I believe in this university, so I can work there. But if I had to go work for a marketing firm, I don't know if I would. If I wasn't interested in it, that's the downside, I think. Is if I'm not interested in it, it's really hard sometimes.
Yeah, it can definitely be hard to connect with things if you're not passionate about it. If you don't have that background.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. That's a really good question. I haven't really thought about what the dream job would be. I mean, it would be cool to do some traveling and do stories like that. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
you know?
And that's okay. You'll find it when you get there. You
right,
know, like
exactly.
if you're interested in so many things, like you know, you never know where you're gonna end up. And I think that's the beauty of it all. So speaking of you working here, I know you've taught a little bit as well, but now you're currently in the Office of Communications and Marketing. Can you talk a little bit about kind of that role and what you've kind of learned?
Oh, here?
Throughout? Yeah.
It's there's just a lot of different needs. I think it is important to like video. What I've learned too is video is it's not always necessary for something. Sometimes people, and when you work at a bigger institution, a lot of times people think they need video, and they don't actually need a video for it. So, example, if you have an audience, you don't necessarily need to show a video.
Yeah.
You know, maybe a hype video is fine, but I do think that sometimes it can actually, if you have the person in front of you, you don't necessarily have to play a video when they're there. Your presence alone can be, you really only want to use it when you're showing something that they can't see or you want to show them.
Yeah.
But I do think it's interesting. There's a lot of, I really like trying to tell student stories because there's just a lot of really exciting things that happen on campus. Our students do a lot of really great things. And so whether it's in the chemistry department or if it's in engineering or English, whatever, there's always somebody doing something amazing. The hard part is actually finding it, because a lot of the professors just kind of take it for granted at different departments. They're doing all these great things, and they don't necessarily know to an outside audience that it's great. So communicating with people is key.
Yeah.
Because it's just like the farm show. I mean, that is just such a great thing. There's I don't know how many SHIP interns.
This year there were 5. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you have 5 SHIP people doing multimedia professional work. By the way, you guys did really professional stuff, and so
thank you.
That's the type of stuff that we love to promote because, I mean, I don't really know that many other universities that have that many hands-on opportunities or that have a relationship, and SHIP has that relationship. So,
yes.
Just going and seeing SHIP students, regardless of what discipline they're in, being able to work on a professional level is really what keeps me here because that's what I see in every single department, and it's just that's sort of what we strive to tell that story because that's kind of everywhere. Plus the community of SHIP has a really strong community feel, and I think that's sort of our values statement, if you will, is that hands-on learning in the community and you belong here is sort of our voice, and that's sort of what you have to look for.
Yeah, definitely. Here. I think also being a smaller institution, there's a lot of opportunities to really get involved right when you walk in the door.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll just talk about CommJourn because that's where that's my major, but day one, I got in here, I'm on the field taking pictures, or I'm in the Lore Center taking pictures, or I'm writing stories and I'm doing all these things, and you can join different groups, you can try different things out different semesters. I feel like at other larger schools, you don't get as much of an opportunity. Like I know I've talked to people here who, people graduate from SHIP and they'll have 4 years of a portfolio experience, and other people at larger schools maybe have 1 or 2. And I think that really helps us stand out.
It does. I think that is one of the most important things. I mean, I remember seeing, at 21, there was probably, at one point, I think there was 10 or 12 SHIP alum that worked at 21 at the same time.
Wow.
And, whether it was, producers or people, photogs, just all, it was a mix. And I just remember how much more well-prepared our people were than even a Penn State person because, it's such a big school, you can't just pick up a camera and work in their student media. So I think, the fact that we have such a robust, student media here too as well is important.
Yeah, definitely. It's an amazing thing to be a part of. So speaking of that, you also have done teaching here a little bit as well.
Mm-hmm.
I know I had you for basic media production last spring, and I thought that class was really helpful preparing students and really getting that hands-on experience and doing kind of different. I know we did like podcasting, we did, creating packages and all that kind of stuff. And I think classes like that especially are very helpful in this field, especially with some people who have maybe never even picked up a camera before. And then they do these assignments and then learn, oh, hey, maybe I want to go over to SUTV. Maybe I want to try something out there. And I think it's really cool. And yeah, I think that class, if you want to talk a little bit about teaching and that class specifically, I don't know if you've taught any other.
Yeah, I taught a digital media tools, and then, but my favorite to teach obviously is the basic media production. And it used to be only for the electronic news, if I'm not mistaken. Like you had to be in that, track for that basic media production.
Interesting.
And now it's open to people who are on a PR track. And I really like having the PR students. I like having someone who's never picked up any camera or done anything, because like one of my favorite assignments is the first assignment, which is the PSA, where we put together, just an audio PSA service announcement. It's 30 seconds, because I just feel like that's like a really good intro into telling a story, in an audio way.
Yeah.
And that's like one of my favorite ones to teach, is because I feel like everyone's knows what the diversity of the outcome on that assignment is always fun. I always love to see how people tell that story. It's a texting and driving PSA.
Yes.
You get to have music and sound effects, and, you basically have to make a message of, don't text and drive. And I just feel like everybody has such a really unique way of telling that story. And honestly, they were better than what you hear on the radio. That's like one of my, and I do like teaching a lot, because it's just a nice, I just like seeing people find something that they can put together. Like you want to be putting things into the world and creating things. And I think that's, if you like to create things, I just think that's like an amazing time to be in this industry, because everything is so accessible now. It used to be so prohibitive, a cost of a camera, the cost of software, the cost of anything was really extremely expensive. And even just hosting it on YouTube, I mean, to think you can create stuff that you can create a podcast for next to nothing. And so I just think it opens up a world of creativity. And I think that's what's really exciting about teaching it and being around it, is that there's just so much more access, and there's just so much creativity flowing. I mean, there's so many people putting out such good content. And a lot of them are not the traditional industry-trained people. A lot of it's just people going out there and creating things. And I think that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, definitely. That's awesome. I remember doing that assignment, the texting and driving thing. I thought it was really cool, because obviously I come from a background, mainly visual background. I'm visual media concentration. I do a lot of photography and stuff. And so having to create a little mini story with just audio and just sounds, and really thinking like, hey, if someone's just listening to this, they need to fully understand what I'm trying to convey, was a challenge, but it was really cool and really fun to kind of play with all the different moving pieces and that.
Yeah, that one's, I don't know why, but I just like that one so much.
Yeah, it's interesting. You have the same prompt for people, but then you see how different everybody
same
makes
assignment,
it. It's so
everybody
cool.
does it really differently.
Okay, so you have a lot of background in photojournalism and doing freelance work with that, but then also you say you kind of stayed away from that a little bit now. You're primarily just doing video stuff now. But for people who may lean more towards one versus the other, I know I mainly lean towards photography. What are some kind of tips that you've learned throughout the years of like kind of specific to each medium? Like if someone wants to maybe try out one and they're not very, like what skills do you think are transferable and which ones do you think you need to learn?
I think any area that you're not, like, it's just such a, it's hard to stick to just one thing now, because everything is multimedia. And I think we can all, I mean, I remember when I started out shooting stills, I thought I'll only shoot stills forever. And I was very attached to my camera, and like, just like, I didn't want anything to change when I was young. Because this is back when film was, I mean, obviously, I was shooting on film. I didn't like the digital, when it changed, that kind of freaked me out at the time. I was like, oh, this is all going to change. And what I found is good storytelling is just good storytelling. And if you can just find a way to tell the story, it does not matter what you're doing, what you're using. I think if you can just let go of some of those things and learn as many things and find what fits. I mean, it's hard to say, like, you know, like the technical aspects. A lot of the technical aspects are for stills are the same for video. You know, as far as like rule of thirds and your lighting and all of those things are very easy to, you know, to transfer over. It is harder, like I said before, about shooting a still. You have to try to have one image tell a whole story, you know, unless, you know, you can't have like a sequence of, you know, in video you can shoot a sequence of things that tell a story. Well, you know, there's limitations and there's benefits to each one. And I just think that if once you start getting into a storytelling mindset, that's really the key that unlocks all of it. Because just like like audio, you're telling a story with just audio, you're still telling a story. You're telling a story whether it's in just listening or visual. And I think it's letting go of like what medium that you pick to choose, I think is the most freeing thing. Because you can kind of do it all. And it is hard though, because sometimes you do get fixated on one specific thing. Yeah. But I would say challenge yourself and do something different. Play around with audio. Play around with stills. I mean, I do shoot stills, you know. It's just I'm not as passionate about stills as I am with video.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like you said, we're in a kind of period now where it's very reliant on multimedia storytelling and all of that, being able to be well-versed in different kinds of storytelling, doing camera work, or also even just, like, writing or doing all, like, reporting and interviewing and all of the pieces that work together to tell those stories. I think it is important to know what you're interested in and know what you're good at, but also, like you said, diversify yourself.
Yeah, there used to be specific jobs for just editing. That's all you would never shoot, and you would just edit. And all those specialty skills now are just, you have to kind of do everything. But I also think that's where the fun is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, do you like to edit more than you like to shoot? Some people like, if I get really good shots, I really am excited to edit, and sometimes I'm conflicted between the two.
Yeah, it's hard to tell. I mean, obviously I love being in there in the moment and shooting and just trying different things. I photograph a lot of the same things sometimes. Like, I do a lot of sports photography, and so I'm going to football game after football game, and I'm like, how can I come at this in a different way than I did in the past? What are some different kinds of shots I can do? And so I really like getting creative in the moment, but then also in post, it is fun when I, run back to my dorm after I know I had a good day with my pictures and I can look at all of them. I'm sure, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about the video editing side of things. Yeah, I'm sure it's a very, very different game, but...
Yeah, if you shoot good video and you're excited, I think I like editing sometimes more than I like shooting. I don't know, I'm kind of in the moment. Like, it's a good mix. But I love working with natural sound, and when you gather all the elements, you're basically building something, and it's just fun to put something together. I do like editing a lot. I feel like I don't really do well sitting down for a long period of time, but when I'm editing, I can edit for hours. If it's something I'm really interested in, and I really like it, and I like all the shots. And I'm pretty self-critical of myself, so I don't always have, I'm always like, oh, I wish I'd done this better. I think a lot of people fall into that. Yes. They're never really happy with what they get, and I think it's a hard habit to break if you're kind of I wouldn't even say perfectionist, but it's just hard sometimes if you really want to make it perfect.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I think there's nothing wrong with trying to improve what you're doing, but I think sometimes, you have to have grace with yourself. Look back at a couple years ago what you're doing and look at how far you've come now. Yes. Like, I think we all need to be a little less hard on ourselves.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So on this podcast, I kind of like to talk a little bit, I talk a lot about the university and like the department and all that, but I also want to talk more about the broader world as well and just kind of the field as a whole. And so especially in video, I want to talk a little bit about social media and kind of the pressure of, I guess, trying to get as much engagement as possible, specifically when it comes to video with, I guess, vertical versus versus landscape. I know, especially, you're making reels or TikTok or all that kind of stuff where you want it to be vertical, but that's not how we see the world. We see it in landscape. And I know you can obviously edit and change the aspect ratio and all that stuff in post, but I guess conforming to the standards of social media now, do you think any kind of creativity is lost because people are trying to get more engagement and stuff like that? Or
that's a hard one because I just, anytime something new is added, it's not like something is lost.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I just think it's obviously there's a lot of really low quality stuff that gets a lot of engagement. I do think social media as a whole, the algorithm is the problem, not the content. I think just a lot of people, there's a screen addiction, scrolling addiction. People doom scroll. They are, there's a lot of really bad stuff happening, but it's not the way it's being. It's not the format. It's not whether it's vertical or horizontal. Yeah. But I think there's a lot of I see a lot of really creative things being put out there that are very entertaining and really funny or really poignant. And it's sometimes it is on. You don't want to be a purist. I think if you become too much of a purist, I think you don't want to set up too many rigid things because I think that can stifle it. I mean, if somebody communicates the message, they communicate the message. Well done. I just think that's all that matters.
Yeah, I think also with that short form content, it's kind of you're condensing what you're trying to say in such a short amount of time. I think it is impressive what some people can do.
It can be. It's very impressive. And I would also say too, you could argue that everybody's attention span is going away, but look at a podcast. I mean, people will listen to 2-hour podcasts. So that kind of that kind of challenges that narrative. Like I said, I think there's room for all of it. If it's done, if the content's good, and so I think that there's a lot of you can do content with. I mean, our social media person was telling me that somebody was recommending doing a 7-second video. That it's what can you tell in 7 seconds? But I would put the challenge to anybody who can do it. If you can do it, then done.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's short film contests where it's you have only a couple minutes to tell a story, and I think people can do it really well.
Yeah,
I think that's the challenge.
Definitely, I think if you have that passion and there's an idea that you have, I think these kinds of platforms are great ways to express those. Even though it is a bit, a 7-second video isn't a lot, but
right.
I think if you have that idea, I mean, this is the world we live in. This is kind of content most people are seeing, and so if you want to get something out there, you do kind of have to adhere to.
Yeah, I mean, for engagement,
stuff.
I do think though that good content is good content. And somebody will watch it. If it's good content, they'll watch it for an hour. And if you made it good enough for the 7 seconds, and I don't think there's any hard fast rules other than it should be authentic and it should be good quality content and tell a story or convey a message or a thought or an emotion. I think that's all that really matters.
It's amazing. I think that's a great message to end on. Is there anything else you'd like to say to anybody watching? Or any last parting message?
I think it's just get up there and start creating if you really are passionate about it. And don't be afraid that you have to have the best gear. Don't be afraid that you don't have the most experience. I think it's just important to just start creating stuff. Even if it's just for yourself. You don't want to share it yet until you get to a point where you're comfortable with sharing it. I think it's just nice to see people creating things instead of just being consumer driven. I think we should all try and create things. We didn't even talk about AI.
That's a whole other piece.
That's a whole other piece about it. But
I
mean, I do like to see when people are creating things. I think that's really what we're meant. That's our purpose is to create things.
Just keep creating.
Keep creating. So
Great. Well, thank you so much for being on. So this will conclude today's episode. This has been the Behind the Lens podcast. Thank you for listening, and be on the lookout for future episodes.